All right, we are live. Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Deconversion Stories. Hopefully, I'm not too loud. I was realizing after watching myself on a couple of shows that I've been on recently that my mic was pretty hot. So I kind of turned it down a little bit. So hopefully, I'm not blaring your ears out right now if you're wearing headphones. Anyways, my guest today is the lovely Zara Kay, all the way over in the British Isles. And we are going to be talking about her deconversion today and probably a couple other things like the faithless
hijabi.
That's the word I was looking for. I'm old and my memory doesn't work as well. But so let's get into it, Zara. Let's take us back to, I guess, when you first started realizing that the things that you were believing may not possibly be true and all the dominoes that fell that led you to becoming the amazing atheist activist that you are today.
Oh, thank you. And thanks for having me. I'm sorry this took a while to set up.
Life happens.
Yeah. And you're a busy man, so.
I am too, yeah.
So actually, I was talking to somebody on Instagram today, and I think she comes from a similar background as me, but she's kind of a mix. But she basically sent me a message. She was like, hey, I know you're getting a lot of hate. I just want to say, stay strong. People should let you talk. And she identifies as a Muslim. And when I was talking to her, because she could relate to my background, I keep realizing that the more I go on this journey and the more people I speak to, I start uncovering a lot of my past with like disbelieving things that I was taught and that I never believed that I'd completely blanked out as an adult and when I came out. So a lot of times when I'm doing these podcasts, they're great because the questions that are coming up or the time that I haven't done the podcast for, like I haven't done a podcast in like 3 months. So like they help me think, and like I think my story just doesn't get changed, but it gets more refined over time.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So like I guess for me, I think like most people, it wasn't like a one night where everything turned around. I had
actually, honestly, most people I speak to, it's never just overnight.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple of instances, but usually there's at least a couple of years involved in this.
Yeah, I never had like this one science book that I read. I never had this like one verse because every time it was just apologies and there was not one thing that kept bothering me. Like there was always excuses. But I think over time I just realized that I hadn't prayed since I was 14, or that even when I did pray, it was because I felt obliged to, or I felt the guilt, not as much as going to hellfire, but I felt guilty because let's say somebody in my family had died and I had to pray, or that, you know, it was one of the holiest nights and I had to pray. But even then, it was never authentic. So I can't remember the last time, and this is probably when I was young, that I've actually wanted to pray, like that I felt any sort of connection. And I think that's when, you know, like as an adult, it was, I think one of the nights, it's basically the first month of the Islamic calendar. It's called Muharram. So for the Shias, so there are two sects, the Shias and the Sunnis. The Shias believe that after Muhammad, his family became the leaders. They weren't prophets, but they were imams, but they became the leaders.
And because they were related to him, or
because they were related to him. So the differences that the Sunnis and the Shia have is the caliphate. So with the Shias, they believe that his cousin and his cousin, who was also his son-in-law, should have taken over the caliphate. But the Sunnis believe that because his other companions had spent a longer time with him, they should have taken over. So that's where they start spreading out. So I come from the Shia sect, which is majority the Iranians. Majority the Iranians, and Shias are minority Muslims anyway, and then Ahmadis follow after them, or maybe there are other in between. But for Shias, that month, the first month of the Islamic calendar, is always a sad month. So it's about a war that happened. Yeah, so it's about a war that happened 1,400 years ago, where the grandson of the Prophet was killed along with his family, and they were imprisoned, and they were fighting against other Muslims over power and over like who will be the leader and which Islam. And like I'm not saying that the fight was valid, but it was two people fighting over power. And then one person, basically the Prophet's grandson, decided to bring his family along.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously by family, I mean kids and like babies and like women as well who aren't allowed to fight.
Mm-hmm.
So the Shia still celebrate, commemorate it. And then it was that night where I was in Melbourne and I really wanted to go to the mosque because, sorry, I'd moved to Sydney. So I'd really wanted to go to the mosque because it was my first time in Sydney for that month. And I was working at Google then. And we have an internal forum. And I was really shy to write to people. I'm like, hey, is anybody going to the mosque? Because I don't know anyone here. But I
Mm-hmm.
wrote it and somebody messaged me and it's like, oh, we can take you. I'm going to get like rewards for it anyway. And I'm like, well, I don't give a shit. I just don't want to go alone.
Yeah.
And I wasn't wearing a hijab then, but I wore it for like not even my train journey. It was like basically before I went inside the mosque.
Right.
Um, and
That,
the
was
person
that just a respect thing,
you
or
have to wear it at the mosque. So some people wore it, some people didn't wear it. But where I came from, everybody had to wear it in the mosque. If you're a
okay?
Muslim, everybody had to wear it. And at weddings, when there are non-Muslims invited, sometimes they too try to put it on. It's mostly like, oh, we should respect it. Um, so when I was younger, all of that, like I was just, it was just so normal to me that I didn't even think about it. When I would go to the mosque, I just knew automatically I had to wear it.
Right.
And I think it was that night where there was an Iranian guy and he was talking in English and the lecture was in English. Sometimes it depends. It could be in Iranian, like it could be in Persian and I wouldn't understand. But if it's in Urdu, I can pick up a few words.
Okay.
But he was basically so anti-Jew. And
Wow.
like he was anti-Jew and I've never been in a lecture where I've really paid attention. And I was like, what is wrong with this guy? And then when I left and I'm like, that was horrible. I don't want to go anymore. And
Wow.
I've never shared this story before, but that's when I feel like I was basically like slowly breaking apart because I hadn't been to the mosque in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I heard that person, and I'm like, there's something wrong with this person. But then I
Mm-hmm.
realized it's not uncommon to have anti-Jew sentiments as a Muslim.
No, not at all. I mean,
And
I lived in
ex-
Israel for years. I was raised Jewish, so
yeah.
yeah, and I experienced quite a bit. Although my best friend there was Lebanese, and he's like, "I don't get it." And I'm like, "I don't either."
Yeah, I know. I think when you're raised around a multicultural, um, I guess a multicultural country environment where you can also hang out outside school with those friends,
Mhm.
you learn a little more, like you get to know them at a friendly level than just classmates. So I
Sure.
think you absorb a bit more because where I grew up in Tanzania, it is, well, African, like Black Africans are the natives, and
Mhm.
then there are Indians and Arabs who came in the 1700s. So I think that's where my family came from.
Okay.
And then they've mixed in between. So there is an Indian Arab mix, and then there is like an Arab African mix. But then African people still tend to be of lower classes. And this is
Mhm.
important because I was raised to be quite racist. I never understood it.
Right.
Um,
Right. Right.
so I had maids, I had a driver, and it was, I guess it was a more, I guess, a luxurious life than most people in the West would have it. Um, so like, having maids cook for you, like chef and like clean, and I didn't know how to scrub a toilet when I left overseas. So I
I
was
learned pretty quick.
yeah, I had never done it before. Like I have cleaned surfaces, but I'd never known how to like basically even just go to the sink and do it. So I came from a very sheltered life.
Mhm.
So like religion and everything, it was always like passed on. You don't question it.
Mhm.
You just take it. The culture of the community that I came from was also passed on. It was just everything there just made sense if you lived there. If somebody else, even from a Muslim background, came there, it would not make sense to them because the
Really?
community, yeah. So the languages we spoke. So I speak Gujarati at home, but mine is very broken now because I haven't spoken properly in 12 years.
Yeah, it's probably
But
good in my Hebrew.
yeah, I mean, I sometimes try with my family, but it was also because we never had in-depth conversations. So I'd go like, "Oh yeah,
Okay.
this is what I did. This is where I went. This is what I do. What I'm doing. This is how I do in class, and this is what happened." It's
Mhm.
basically just like writing them like a meeting notes. Nothing Nothing more than that.
Right.
We never really spoke about it.
Okay.
So I was quite sheltered. My family, like, we have a great relationship now, as
Oh,
great as
good.
you could. Having that differences, you can't ever talk about and like, you can't talk about the big elephant in the room because it'll just cause separation. So you're like, you do you, I'll do me. And if people talk to them about me because they live in that community, they don't pass it on to me.
Okay.
They've just been really good at this. They're like, that's a stress she doesn't need in her life, and they're talking to us. We should be able to handle it.
You're pretty lucky in
Um,
that respect, actually.
I definitely agree with that. Like, it's sad that I feel so privileged because there's so many others that I work with don't feel like that.
Sure.
And I guess, I mean, there's still ups and downs because whenever we talk about things such as, how to raise a child, or like I have a baby sister and
Mhm.
nieces, and I'm like, hey, you can't do that. That's emotionally abusive. And they're like, oh, we don't agree on that simple matter, because they don't understand emotional abuse. They don't understand that, when you tell me that I owe you my life, you're making me feel guilty into
Mhm.
doing things for you. You're manipulating me. Those words, they would never understand. So it was really hard. It took us years, and it still over time does take us a while setting boundaries.
That's more the norm for them, I guess.
Yeah, and I think it's also it's not just religious families, it's specifically South Asian families and maybe Middle Eastern as well, where I guess the way you're raised, and religion may have a part to play in this, is that you praise your parents.
Mhm.
So it's like they're doing you a favor by raising you. So you owe them your life, and you should never go against them. You need to respect them, and there's no concept of boundaries.
Mm.
There's no concept of giving people space.
Like
And
privacy, that kind of thing?
no, I had never had my own room, but that was also because we weren't financially, I guess, financially well off to like have all the six children have their own rooms.
Right.
Um, But yeah, I guess just outside of that, it still feels like we still didn't have that space. There was no enough grounds for you to formulate your own opinion.
Right.
So, so like I said, I was really sheltered. Everything was there for me. It made sense. But I think when I was 14, or when I was around that age and I was kind of finding myself, I remember that, I started wearing a headscarf when I was 8. I wanted to wear it. I used to tell my mom, I'm going to wear it. I'm going to wear it. And mom's like, if you wear it once, you need to commit to it and you can never remove it. And then at
Oof.
8, and I'm like, well, this is my life. This makes sense. So I'm going to wear it. So it wasn't forced on me, but it was definitely coerced,
Sure.
because
Sure, sure.
Muslim women have to do it. I didn't know you could be a Muslim woman and not wear it. It
Oh,
just,
wow.
that didn't exist.
But I
And
see pictures from like the 60s and 70s of women not wearing the
yeah.
hijab, right? So,
Yeah, so my mom didn't wear a hijab until she got married to my dad, and she was 23.
oh, wow. Okay.
She
Okay.
was 23, and that's when she got married. Whereas when it came to my generation and my sisters, they were pressured into getting married like at 19, 20. And it wasn't
Wow.
forced. It was just the society. Everybody after high school gets engaged, gets married, or they study, or they kind of work. Not many go study overseas. And if they go study overseas, they're going to be spoiled with Western values.
Oh, no.
That was legit a conversation that I overheard my dad talking to my uncle about sending my brother overseas.
Mhm.
Um, and I was like, oh, maybe they are right. Like, the West white people do this and that, and they commit sins and whatnot. I feel like I have not yet uncovered all of it to that extent, especially like when I first moved overseas and I saw people of different ethnic backgrounds
Mhm.
wearing a scarf, and I'm like, but you're Asian. Okay, wait, so you're Muslim as well. Fine, I get it. You're wearing a headscarf. And then I saw another Muslim woman who didn't wear a headscarf, but she was a Muslim. And I'm like, you can do that? Like, aren't you like basically not Muslim if you don't wear a hijab?
Yeah.
I was 16 when I moved overseas, and I was like, wow, all of this is so new to me. But
Were you in
sorry,
like
just
a period of shock, or
I was. It was
you think?
it was definitely a cultural shock for me.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I didn't even know there was something as non-halal food. Because in
Wow.
Tanzania everything was halal. All
Right.
of my environment was halal, and it's not like a cult story. Like it wasn't as tight knit, but it kind of, I guess, when you coming from my background and you go overseas and everything was so new to me, and you're like, what is this? I had never really eaten properly with cutlery, and that was probably because of my family, or I think our lifestyle. But it was also like a prophet's hadith, and I don't remember this, but
Hmm.
we were encouraged to eat with our hands. So rice and everything was with our hands, steak and soup and whatever where you needed cutlery would be with cutlery, but I could never hold it properly. um so
Wait,
there
wait.
was
Well, you guys some sort of pita or something, some kind of bread to grab things with and eat.
no, so if it's rice, you just put them in a bowl, or like you gather it together and you just eat it. I guess it's easier when you do it. I should have just cooked something. But it's easier when you do it, and you just, I guess you just eat it with your hands, and it's
Hmm.
just, but like I
Hey,
also
I'm
come
all
from,
for eating with your hands, but
yeah, but like I also come from like African food, Indian food,
oh, it's good
not
stuff.
Arabish as much, so it's kind of mixed. So biryani for Indians would be so different from what it is for Arabs, and for Tanzanians is completely different. So we have our own versions of biryani, and a lot of Indianish food that is kind of like adopted by, I guess, merchants or traders who had moved to East Africa at the time. But
Right.
like my journey to living to going overseas and discovering all of this was when I was 14, and I had kind of stopped praying. I was old enough for my parents to not, I guess, forcefully discipline me or emotionally guilt me. But also, like, I was so desperate to get out of Tanzania because I just couldn't see myself living that life. It had nothing to do with being a Muslim. It had mostly to do with how small that world was and how desperate I was to get out, that I started applying for university when I was 14. Um,
What? Really?
yeah, yeah, I
You're like
started.
Sheldon Cooper, or
Well,
like little genius going on here?
um, I actually, so my birthday is in November, so instead of starting at like the January after November, I started the January before. So
I
our
did the
school year
same
sta
thing.
yeah, so I got lucky in that regard, but also, that helped me speed things up as well. So I finished high school when I was 15, and I guess in
Wow.
the US, you can go to college and then you finish a degree after 4 years.
Give
Um,
or take, depending on what you're taking, I think. Yeah.
yeah, so like a normal degree, I guess, would be 4 years, but
Yeah.
because I still did, like, it was British, Tanzania was colonized by the Brits, and we did a British syllables. When I finished high school at 15, I still had to do 2 years of college and then go to university. Um, and then that was another 3 years, and then, my master's and whatnot. But because I was so eager to apply at 14, I started applying. And then obviously the university is like, you're 2 years too early. You haven't finished high school. And I'm like, I know, I just want to be conditionally accepted. So they did that. And then when I got my final results, that made things faster. So the moment I turned 16, 2 months later, I was in Malaysia, to a different continent that wasn't to a different continent, a different country that wasn't English speaking.
Hmm.
But the area I was in was English speaking. And that was when I was introduced to a lot of new things. Now, wearing a hijab wasn't as foreign, but I didn't feel like a minority, but I saw other people wearing hijab, but they were not African. So whenever I told people I'm from Tanzania, the question I was asked is like, why are you not black? And I'm like, I don't know my heritage. I am Tanzanian. This is all I've known. Like, I
Why
know
are
in
you not black? What? Who
I
asks that?
everybody in Tanzania. I mean, I still get that in the UK and Australia as well. They're like, so, but like your ancestors are Middle Eastern or Indian, and I'm like, I don't know. I did an ancestry test, so they're
Yeah.
from that areas. Um,
Cool. Cool.
but I had never known. So there was a lot of cultural shock in terms of seeing different people of color, seeing the way education's taught differently. but also like being around alcohol. Like I had never like I only started drinking like 2 years ago, but I had never been around.
Welcome.
Thanks. um, I had never been around alcohol as much, but also like just being open to an environment where people were not like me helped me understand a world so different than mine.
That's
I didn't
cool.
know what homosexuality was. I had no idea, and then I met somebody who looked like a gay person. He was very flamboyant. And then obviously somebody mentioned he was gay, and I'm like, okay, I think I know what that means. And then I obviously kept up with a lot of movies, so that
Mhm.
made sense to me. I was never hateful. I can't remember myself being hateful. I remember knowing that my religion doesn't allow it, but I don't give a
Right.
shit. Like I was like, you do you. Like you want to do
Yeah,
this, great, you do it.
exactly.
Um, and so my first encounter in public was on Facebook in 2017 when I supported gay marriage.
Cool.
That happened in my community, but that community was extended to Canada, the UK. So people that moved a generation before me
Mhm.
from Tanzania or Kenya and went to Canada. So that wedding happened in Canada, and that
Woo,
was
Canada.
yeah, so that was a really defining moment for me because when I posted it up and I'm like, why do you give a shit about what these men do? It's none of your business. Their
Exactly.
families are happy. Why are you so malicious? And then the responses I got were, oh, if you don't want to be a Muslim, you can denounce your faith, but they have no right to call themselves Muslim. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be a Muslim and I'm going to be a supporter of LGBTQ. What are you going to do about it? And I am quite the
Uh,
rebellious person. But that post gave me 2 weeks of anxiety because there was so much hate. So I'm like, I Googled it. I'm like, where are the peaceful verses in the Quran about people who disagree in faith? I couldn't find any. So
Really?
the limit was that if they disagree with you in faith, then kill them, strike their necks, like, Allah's gonna punish them, they're gonna go to hell, whatnot. And I'm like, I can't find it. I can't find it. There's no clear way that says that you can disagree with in your faith or people cannot agree with you or anything about homosexuality. And I was like, what is happening? And I think that was when I had realized I hadn't been a Muslim for a while, no matter what title I held. And I guess
Right.
it was just an identity that I carried because when I moved to Australia in 2012, so there was Malaysia and then Australia, I was a minority.
Mhm.
And I liked being that because I guess um, in Tanzania as well, I was a minority and I was racially discriminated for not being black. So the other way around.
Wow.
Um, but in Australia as well, I think I just wanted to be rebellious. I wanted to hold my identity up so high. And that's why it took me a while to give away my faith. But that was a defining moment when I went like, this is not who I am. I do not want to be grouped with this people. And then I kept saying, maybe it's the people and not religion. But in those 2 weeks, I read more about the book that was so shocking to me. And I'm like, I used to read these verses and be happy about them. And I had no idea what they meant because it was in Arabic.
Right.
And that's when I decided, I'm like, this isn't for me. And I guess once I made that decision, because I was put in a position to continuously justify myself, even in my head or even amongst my peers, I researched more about religion than I ever had before. Because previously it was there, it decided what I ate, what I didn't drink, but it wasn't like I was missing out much.
Mhm.
Even now with alcohol, since the lockdown, I've only had alcohol like twice.
Mhm.
Um, I
No,
like
I'm sorry.
I know. I mean, I really just want to go out and drink. So I feel like I'm saving myself for 6 months later. Um, but like I think in general, I just didn't like being dependent on the. I didn't like being dependent on anything, and because I was always raised to like think like that, even eating pork was a discovery that I had. Like a bacon was October 2017 when I'm like, I can eat bacon. That doesn't matter to me.
Shit's awesome. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, yeah, I love bacon.
Yeah,
I lo
exactly.
I love bacon. But like a lot of this happened later, even though I didn't actually believe. And like the fear of hell, like the moment I decided I am not going to be a Muslim, it wasn't like it didn't scare me. I think it was only because I'd held that identity that a lot of it followed through. And I'm like, how could I be a bad Muslim? I just don't want to be a Muslim. And that's what helped me calm down a lot in terms of how I faced with the change of identity. A lot of it then was just external factors with all the threats I got. And,
Wow, threats.
yeah, so basically the only thing that I had done at that point was I went on a podcast with Harris Sultan and it was live and there were like 200 people that had tuned in because a lot of Tanzanians are quite nosy and they wanted to know what was it about and like literally like 80% of our views were from Tanzania.
Mm,
So my dad is quite well known in the community in Tanzania. He used to be a chef and people know him for his food, but
cool.
also like he used to be some of the board members and the treasurer and whatnot. So a lot of people know me by association, and my last name is quite unique. It is not K-A-Y. It is very, very unique that if you Google me, it would be my family and maybe like other people.
Mhm.
Um, so a lot of people had tuned in, and then the backlash I got was bad. I was just like, I don't believe in this because of this. And I didn't even blaspheme. I didn't talk about it. And I'm like, I just find it I just said it's so crazy that people are so worked up about others leaving. And that's
Mhm.
when it started that I was criticized. There were death threats sent my way. There were people
Shit.
hating me. My friends, a friend of mine who I had helped with a life or death decision went like, you know what? I feel sorry for you. You have no God or no religion or even your family. So I guess, I just pity you. And I'm like, that is so horrible to say to anyone.
Mhm.
Like, even if you were my enemy, I don't want anything bad to happen to you. Like, thinking about times in COVID when Boris Johnson had COVID, and I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this, but I don't want him to die. I want him to change. I want people to realize
Right,
what
sure.
is, I want people to actually be good. I don't want them dead because then they leave a legacy behind of all the bad, and there's no change that has happened.
Right. Yeah.
So when
Maybe
I
something
was
like this will change him.
I know, yeah. I feel like this is giving people a lot of I feel like coronavirus is actually going to help a lot of people reflect on their lives and what they can do better. Or sometimes like the whole
Lots of
week,
time for it.
the whole week I feel like with Ramadan starting, Muslims have been so horrible to me. So I actually have the police coming tomorrow morning and taking my report. Um, but
Really? What
yeah.
happened? What happened?
So it's all about the threats. Basically, I found like I posted up tips on how to survive Ramadan if you're not fasting. And it has nothing to do with attacking Islam or anything. It's
Mhm.
more like always carry a bottle of water, hide wrappers, take snacks. And if you're told to recite the Quran and you don't want to, download an app and then pretend like you're reciting and
Mhm.
then use an audiobook or wear earphones when you're told to pray. That is not meant to be offensive at all. Maybe like it's not even an attack. And a lot of people just started attacking me and I'm like, what is happening? Like some people are like, I will bomb you, I will do this, I will kill you, I hope you die. How dare you talk about my religion? I will poison you. And
Unbelievable.
and then I was added to a group last night for 2 seconds and then I was removed, and this was on Instagram, and I started reading everything from the group because once you add somebody to the group, they're added to historically all your chat, even if you remove
Sure.
them.
Yep.
So I went up and I read it, and they were basically like plotting on, well, one, I realized they're a bunch of kids, so they're from age 14 to 19. But
Yep.
I'm like, but then they started talking about killing me, the threats, and I'm like, this is cyberbullying. It is illegal to just like to throw threats at each other, like to throw threats at others. And even if you're a minor, you should face consequences. So
Mhm.
initially, I was like, I'm just going to threaten these kids and I'm going to tell them you're actually committing a federal offense. And I've reported it to the police. Some of them didn't believe me. And I'm like, you know what? I'm actually going to do it because if this doesn't happen to you, I can mentally endure this. Other people can't. Other people live with abusive homes, in abusive homes, and with abusive families. So I was like, the police needs to know it. What they decide to do next is going to be up to them.
Sure.
Whether they're going to press charges, whether they'll send out warning letters. But there was so much hatred in their eyes. Like, it was bad. Like, it doesn't upset me that it was directed to me, but it was shocking because my 14-year-old, or like my teenage, was never spent on hating anyone. I didn't
Mhm.
even know the Quran said that if you're an unbeliever, you're going to hell. I didn't know this because I'm like, you're a good person. So that's what I meant. Like, I was
Which
so
is really what matters.
exactly. And I'm like, I was raised to like I said, I was so sheltered that, my parents don't even know apostasy is punishable by death. They don't give a shit. That's why we even have a relationship. So technically, I was so sheltered from, I guess, what would one say the real Islam or the entire holistic view of it or different points of views that when
Mhm.
this happened to me, I was like, how could you grow up thinking like that? You're a child. How could you
Mhm.
even just say somebody, I hope out like somebody who's a living person? You're not like a jihadi, like you're not somebody who's in because usually a lot of my threats are from older Pakistani men, not even women. But I'm like, you're a girl and you're 14 or 16. And I'm like, that's how much you hate somebody talking about Islam?
It's
Because
surprising that they're even in that mindset at that age.
exactly. And I'm like, because I said I feel free without hijab, because I said this is how you can survive, and because I post up stories of others, like I used to be quite aggressive about it a year ago, and then I kind of calmed down because I realized I wanted my efforts to be directed into helping other ex-Muslims and then navigating my activism to be in support of that.
Right.
But I but then a lot of like my past year has always been about more women focused, more support and more I guess raising voices than actually even giving my own opinions. And when that happened and I was like, wait, like I was just like, why are you hating me? Like, literally, this girl wrote to me and she's like, I heard you're looking for a therapist. Do you have depression? And I'm like, I do have anxiety. I'm not looking
Mhm.
for a therapist. But if you have any contacts, I would really like them because I refer other women who've been abused, who've gone through FGM or other organizations. And I knew she was mocking me, but I was like, I'm going to be the bigger person and let her know. If she has any contacts, she can come to me. And maybe in the future, when she goes through it, she'll remember it. Because I
Mhm.
always take it on like that. I've had like legit two girls today like came up to me so angry and then I responded kindly and she's like, you're actually cool. And I'm like, I don't care what you believe in. And I'm like, I've always been like an older sister. This is why I like what I do with Faithless Hijabi because I actually get to help younger girls navigate their ways. And it's never like run away because I'm going to give them practical advice. And I'm like, this
Mhm.
is how you hide, this is what you tell them, and this is how you pretend. But, like, for that girl to then go like, "Oh, do you want a cookie? I'll poison it for you." And I'm like, "You're a child." I was like, "Okay." And I'm like, I let it be, and then I realized, because I was added to that group, like 7 other people sent me messages, and that had
Mhm.
been going on for 2 weeks. I just didn't put 2 and 2 together. I didn't realize that they were targeting me for a while.
Right.
And I was like, you could be like a group of 50 kids. But if none of you know that this has repercussions, and if I don't report it, even if I've threatened them, they wouldn't do it, then I feel like this needs to go to authorities because you're bullying me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're actually bullying me. And this is not a high school thing. This is actually a federal offense.
Yep.
So that's why, like, I got really pissed off when somebody just went on calling me a slut, and she went like, atheist and ex-Muslims, like, you're gonna be burnt. And I'm like, I'm
Hmm.
at a point where I'm not scared at all, but the fact that you have so much hatred, and I always worry about the younger like the younger ex-Muslims who come out, because people come to us when they're 14
Yeah.
and they don't even know Islam fully, but they're like, this isn't for me. And I'm like, fine, that's okay.
Mhm.
But
Sure it is.
imagine them going through all that abuse, and I'm like, I have had so many people, like, talk to me when they're like, "I'm really depressed and I'm really hating the hate, and I've contemplated suicide." And that's how
Wow.
they always come, and that's the reason why many women especially don't go out in public because, as you've noticed, Faye and I always get some sexual harassment with us.
Yep. Yep.
And we're just like, I guess I have to go ahead with the report no matter what the police decide to do. I probably won't press charges, but if they could give them a warning, I'm like, sure, that is all I want. I want them to know that this is real, that this is happening, and that they cannot continue this. Because
Right.
with this one guy, when I'm like, I have pressed charges, by the way, and I sent him the report I sent, and he's like, I have Allah with me, no police can do anything,
It doesn't work that way, pal.
and I'm like, I want to see how this pans out when your parents actually find out that you've said to somebody, I will bomb you. And I'm like, you guys are like creating a toxic circle for each other.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, this needs to stop. And I don't like bullies because I guess I've been bullied so much since leaving that I'm like, this isn't fair. Like, it's not
Of
fair
course
to
it's
me.
not.
It's not fair to other people. And especially that when I was going through those chats, so I scrolled through a group of 20 teenagers chats about, oh, like there were some childish chats. I'm like, should I text my ex? Should I not? But then inside of that, they were like, oh, maybe you should send her nudes. Maybe you should mentally scar her so that she never talks
Fuck.
about Islam. And they're like, anyway, somebody who's not a Muslim is going to go to hell anyway. So I was like, wow. And I'm like, this is a chat where you all feel safe to talk about. And I'm like, that is a fucked up mindset. Why would you have friends like that? And the two girls that were actually nice to me, and I'm like, you need to separate yourself from this group. Because if they go
Yeah.
down, they can take you down with them. Somebody
Yeah.
who doesn't care who's they're doing a criminal offense, they're basically not going to give a shit about you either.
Right.
And if somebody is so malicious, imagine you leaving. They're going to be as malicious to you. Imagine your choices don't align with what they want from you. They're going to be as hurtful to you. So, like, those girls are like, you actually have a point and you're nice to talk to. And I don't care what your views are. Like,
Right.
I,
Which is the
you
way it should
don't,
be.
yeah. And I'm like, you don't deserve that. And I'm like, I know this. I'm not hurt because if somebody if like Ricky Gervais said, if somebody on the street goes like, "Hey, you're a cunt," I'm not gonna go up to them and fight them. And I'm like, sure.
Whatever.
Like, it doesn't matter.
Water off a duck's back.
Your opinion is irrelevant. But yeah, so that's like around the abuse, and it's also part of the work that I do now. Is that I've started creating one page tips and whatnot that circulate around, and I think it just talks to people. And the whole basis of Faithless Hijabi was because my story was so boring, I guess. I didn't come from an extremist family. I think a lot of my abuse happened after I left, and it wasn't from my family.
Right.
So my family was involved in a bit of it, but now they're getting better. And my brother and I have a really good relationship. So he's
That's
actually
good.
listening to me. He's like, you have a point. Like when I sent him the threats I got yesterday, he's like, and I'm like, how are people so hateful? And he's like, because they don't understand what you're saying. You're
Hmm.
saying something so complex that they
And
cannot
foreign.
comprehend. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're speaking something that they cannot comprehend, and that's why they're lashing out. And he wasn't supporting them, but he's like, they're crazy. But so
I
my
often
brother,
wonder, though, like when you're talking about the kids and the way they lash out at you, I often wonder if there's some underlying doubts that they have that and then they see you're free from it and now they're
yeah,
angry
yeah.
because they
So
can't get out or whatever.
the girls who actually started becoming friends with me and had talked to me over time, and
Mhm.
somebody messaged me after she saw the threats, and she's like, "You don't deserve it." I know they were fasting, so I'm always like, even if like they're aggressive towards me, I'm like, I don't want to go down to your level. So when I started talking to them, this girl just went like, "You are speaking my story."
Mm.
She's like, "I'm fasting because I live with my mom and that I feel guilt, but I don't really believe in all of this." And she's like,
Wow. Okay.
people want to shut you up because you're hitting home." And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah. And like it's a lot of it. And I think it's harder with men to understand me, especially when I talk about hijab issues, but
Hmm.
also when they start calling me bitches and a slut for showing my hair, I'm like, you're not gonna get it because you're raised to keep thinking like that. So unless another man talks to you, or unless it's your sister and somebody you care about going through that, that's when you're going to realize that this isn't correct. Because
Right.
at this point, this person has not been impacted by it. Especially if it's a woman's issue, he's not going to be impacted by it. The other
Right.
girls, like one of the girls who came to me from that group 2 weeks ago, she was really angry, but she didn't threaten anything. She's like, I think you should just research and whatnot. And she's like, in the end, she went like, you're actually an inspiration, but I don't like what you said about this. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm like, and then I told her my thought process about it. And she's like, you have a point. Hmm. And then and then I'm like, okay, I'm just going to let you be. Like, this is it.
Yeah.
And that's all I want to do. Like, as long as you think about it, that's it. But I can't have that conversation with my own family because one, I don't want to upset them. And two, when I try with my younger sister who's in the UK but lives in a different city,
Mhm.
I think she was so defensive and she's like, and I guess her defense is also, you know more about religion than I do. But I don't want to give up my religion. And I'm like, okay, cool.
Mhm.
And I think it's also discouraging for younger people doubting their religion to see how much abuse like the rest of us get. Because then
Mhm.
they're like, should
They're
I
scared of
actually
it.
leave?
Yeah. Yeah.
Should
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
tell should I tell anyone?
It's a
And
deterrent, right?
yeah, exactly. So I guess like there's always like a pros and cons, and I think sometimes my sister is just not ready to explore it.
Mhm.
I did tell her I was a bit disappointed because she comes from a world where she's in computer science. So she's probably like 10 out of 90 students who are like women and men. And I'm
Mhm.
like, how do your male colleagues treat you? And she's like, sometimes not that well. Like they don't think I can code. And she's quite brilliant. She's quite smart. And I'm like,
I
so
don't.
how
I'll never understand that kind of thought pattern.
yeah, she's like she's always like, yeah, they do treat me like a bit they are a bit sexist. And I'm like, so how do you not see that Islam is doing the same thing? And I'm like, yeah, but
Little
Islam
light
this
bulb. Little light
not
bulb goes
not
on. No.
really, not
Oh.
really. She's like, but this, it doesn't actually say this. And I'm like, I was hoping that she would see it. I was hoping that
Mhm.
sometimes she would go like, you know what, this is unfair, this is not right. Or
You know,
that
like a
some
little eureka moment or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like just me talking to her and her not being able to answer sometimes, it could be overwhelming as well and people get defensive. I think I'm
Sure.
gonna wait for like 6 more months and then bring it up again. I don't want her to leave because of me, but I want her to at least, I guess, vouch for me in a way.
Well,
Because my
just
bro
think about it. Think
yeah,
critically, right?
I think for me it is like mostly when I say vouch for me, it's not just like talk to my parents about me, but like in a way like understand why I do what I do,
Hmm.
and that because they receive so much criticism from the community because of me,
Oh wow.
um, I'm like, I really hope you know
Uh-oh. Give us a minute here, guys. Looks like we froze up a bit. I've been hearing from others that the internet is kind of wonky today over in England. So maybe if you can still hear me, Zara, maybe pop out and pop back in. Or hit the F5 button, I think is what you have to do. Refresh. She'll be back, folks. We went through this a little bit earlier, so just give her a second and she'll come back in. There's Dave posting Quran verses. Women are worth half that of a man. It says that in the Old Testament too. Ah, yes. Oh, she'll come back. Don't worry. By the way, guys, all the links for Zara are below, so you can check those out. Which she has the Faithless Hijabi website and ways to help support them and ways to help support her with her YouTube channel, which is also below. And the Faithless Hijabi Facebook and her Facebook and Twitter, etc., are all down below. And we'll be doing an after party. And a special guest also is going to be jumping in, as far as I know. We talked about it the other day, and David said he might jump in. So if anyone else would like to jump in, let me know. Once again, this is going to be an episode where there's probably going to be a lot of folks wanting to jump into this, so I might have to switch people in and out. So please be aware of that and be prepared to jump in and out after you've asked a couple of questions or were part of the conversation, whatnot. Yeah, it's all your fault, Doorknob Head. That's why. And welcome, finally, IQ. I'm joking because he told me yesterday that he was going to be a bit. So, all right, I might as well spill. I'm not entirely sure if she'll be joining us or not. She did say she was interested in doing it, but it'll be Rachel Oates, just so you guys know. I was watching her build the Apollo 11 spacecraft the other day. I only got in there for like the last hour and a bit, but that sucker went on for 5.5 hours to build that thing, which I totally understand. I think it took me something similar to build my Millennium Falcon when I first got it. So, and it's all apart again. It's in chunks, but I'm going to rip it all apart and reconstruct it again one of these days because Lego is fucking awesome. So I'll give her a quick message to see what's happened there, but she may have had some problems. So there she is.
I was texting.
Yeah, I've heard that there's been some issues. I know. I just pulled that up now. I said I better check and see if she sent me a message. So,
and I tried sending you a message, and then I realized, oh wait, my network doesn't work, and neither does my 4G because I'm in an area where only one service provider works.
Oh wow.
So yeah.
Wow. Well, that's right. It's David Worley's birthday, and it was also Best Name Ever's birthday too. So, guys, wish them all happy birthday. And I was just telling them about your websites and stuff, and all the links below.
Oh, perfect.
And I kind of spilled the beans on who our other guests might jump in with us for the after party. So should be a lot of fun. But anyways, you left off talking about your sister and
yeah. So I guess with my sister and with my family, I have to like tread lightly and with caution.
mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I think they're a good example of how families can still have a relationship, especially with ex-Muslim families. It
doesn't happen. That doesn't happen very often.
No,
I've spoken to a few ex-Muslims, and one of them was telling me that that his own uncle was hunting him down.
Yeah, I mean, I got really lucky that a lot of my relatives want nothing to do with me. Also because if they're like, if my dad has a relationship with me, why do they care? So
yeah,
I guess that's probably some of the things that are good, I guess. I mean, I was uninvited to my niece's wedding, my cousin niece's wedding.
Really?
Yeah, like legit. She had her wedding and it was in the UK. Like it was like a half an hour away from where I live. And basically my brother, it was in a family chat. I wasn't there because I'm in no family chats except my immediate family. And they're like, oh, her wedding is here at this place and whatnot. And then my brother messaged my cousin. He's like, is my sister invited? They're like, yeah, because I have another sister here. They're like, no, we're talking about Zara. And they're like, oh, we have to check. And my brother's like, well, if you have to check, then no, she's not coming. And neither will my, and then my sister protested as well. My other sister who was invited, she's like, I'm not going. If they can't respect you for your choice and they're going to uninvite you, that's disrespectful for me as well. Because it makes me feel like I'm not wanted. So nobody from my family attended.
Really?
Yeah. So I guess like the
like a boycott sort of thing.
Yeah. Like the cute part about my family is that they will try taking my side when people go like, oh, your family is disappointed, and they're like, no, we're not. She can do her own thing. And if you're really concerned about her sins, why don't you pray for her?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I still find it condescending, but I know for them it's kind of like a deflection to like go do your own shit without like instead of telling other people what they should be doing to go to heaven.
Right.
So,
Right.
so that's really nice that they're actually trying to like take my side and to show that defiance that family have to like that families have to break because of religion. So I think they're really trying. So in that way, I feel like my story is quite boring because everybody else has this, I guess, traumatic past because they were raised so, um, I guess, in a very extremist family or with a lot of religion enforced on them.
Mhm.
While with me, there were things that I thought I could never do, like the hijab and like actually have a career. I was always raised to be my father's daughter or my husband's wife.
Mhm.
I specifically remember telling my mom, and I'm like, I think I want to remove it, or sometimes I just want to go without it. Can I just not wear it? And I'm pretty sure I think I was younger than 16 years old, and she's like, well, you can't because you have to wear it as a Muslim woman, and your dad is never going to let you do it. Maybe if you get married, if that's what your husband wants. And I'm like, hang on. So I have to find somebody who's willing for that? Like where I forgot I had a life. I forgot I could do me. So I guess applying for university, one of the motivation was I have to be independent and I guess I was trying so hard to impress them and like let them know that hey, I don't have to be married to have my own life.
Mhm.
And that kind of motivated my younger sister to do computer science because I come from an engineering background. Um, so I guess like in that way, I feel like I'm so glad that, that's opened up new doors for other sisters. But at the same time, because I turned out to be an atheist, my family was like, should we let other daughters study overseas? Like, is that like,
Dun dun dun.
yeah. So I kind of had to like fight on it, fight for it. I think somebody asked if I was on YouTube. I am not. I want to do more YouTube videos. I actually got a few equipment for it. I should do. I should do it, but
You should.
I am really camera shy. I talk quite a bit when there's somebody else.
You'd never know. Watching you here now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine when I'm having a conversation, and then I'm at the
Sure.
camera, and I'm like, I can't do this.
I can't think of
And
anything.
I'm like, I know what I want to say, and in my head last night, it all sounded perfect. And then when I say it, and I'm like, wait, maybe I didn't mean to say that, or did I put too many s's, or like, did I use a different adjective or anything? And I'm like, huh. Um, but yeah, no, I definitely want to do more videos, and I want to do more supportive videos and informational videos on, I guess, more about life skills and empowering other women who
Mhm.
come from
That's a
Muslim
great idea.
backgrounds. Because I think like when you're made to wear the hijab, you're not taught how to love your bodies. You're not taught like what your shoulders mean to you, or and especially with a lot of the media and magazines which are now changing on like what body confidence is. So when people are
Yeah.
not a size 00 or a size 0, they feel ashamed to even take off their hijab and like go confidently because they're not skinny enough, or they don't know how to basically just be happy or confident with showing their wrists or just wearing shorts or even not wearing shorts. I feel
Mhm.
like people think they need to be quite polarized in their dressing styles. Like if you're not wearing a hijab, you need to wear shorts. When there is like obviously a lot of women who don't do that, and a lot of women just do what they're comfortable with and what their body is telling them. I think we were never taught a lot of these
Mhm.
life skills and on mental health and boundaries. Still, like right up to like I guess 2 days ago, I still have to teach my family and what boundaries are. So when I try talking to them and they're like, "Oh, but why didn't you do this?" and I'm like, "Because it's not my job to do it," or like, "You can't." Like they're what if my sister is so annoyed that I don't listen to anyone and I'm basically living my life? And I'm like, yes, that's how people should be living their life. So yeah, I feel like a lot of this is needed to basically help people get over guilt. I feel like guilt and fear traps so many, and that's how a lot of aggression is directed towards me, because I guess in some ways I burst their bubble.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I just hope that, you know, at the very least, people who are not hurting other people with their religion realize that there is another side to that religion that is actually harmful. If
Yep.
you're not practicing the extremist side, that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It exists. And because you don't counter it and acknowledge it, you give more room to grow. And when you criticize people who are criticizing that, you're basically shutting down people who want to make a change and, I guess, destroy the attitude that we both don't want to exist.
Hmm. There's an interesting question from my very good friend Chris, who has another show called The Daily Atheist, which I'm
Hmm.
sure now that he's seen you interviewed with me, he's probably going to come knocking at your door. Hey, you can come on my show. But yeah, what do you think about this? I heard that criticizing Islam on YouTube videos will get you blocked by YouTube or banned by YouTube, I guess. And I've
I
never heard of this.
I think criticizing ideas is fine. I know Apostate Ridwan does it, Apostate Prophet does it, and a lot of
Ridwan
other
on.
people. Yeah, a lot of people do it, and they have a lot of subscribers. So I think they do it fine, and it hasn't been taken down. I think you have to be really smart about it, because YouTube videos are generally harder to take down as compared to Facebook search, like word
Right.
algorithms.
Sure,
So
sure.
I guess you have to be smarter about it. I remember my Facebook post was taken down because I posted up the death threats I was getting. I didn't write anything about it. I'm like, but these are the screenshots I've been getting. And I was basically banned for like an image search on the word kill. And I'm like, I
Really?
hope
Wow.
somebody kills you. And I'm like, this is what I got. And then I got banned for it. And I'm like, what did I do?
No kidding.
Yeah. I think you can still post it. I think if you post it in a way that is one less I can't say not biased because we're all biased. I think one more factual, two more of like, more what you think about it, without, I guess, addressing that all Muslims are like that. I think one that's intellectually honest, and two, it also helps shine a light on ideas versus people. But also, if you keep it to a more question basis, I like how GM Skeptic does some of his videos,
Hmm.
and he'll go like, "This is what it says, but what do you think about it?" And I think that also is a bit more inviting to, well, one,
Yes,
criticism,
for sure.
but it also engages people to then go like, well, what can I write in response to that, because I don't like what he said. And then when people actually start formulating, they're like, but hang on, he has a point. Or when people, so like my video that I talked about life after Islam and embracing losing your faith because there's so much guilt involved in it. I was like,
Mhm.
if you want to believe, believe. If you don't want to believe, do the same thing. Don't let people guilt you into it. There are a lot of practices. So I went like, there are a lot of practices that I didn't agree with.
Mhm.
And I put it more like, well, this is, I think as objective as you can put it, and then giving your subjective opinion on it versus like what Muslims would do would actually get a better spin for you. And
Right.
um, I don't know if, yeah, I don't think like it would be taken down otherwise, because I know a lot of other ex-Muslim YouTubers do it.
Yep, I know quite a few.
Yeah, I think you should be fine. And I think if you do a smaller one, a smaller video, um,
They probably
basically
won't
see
even
how that
notice.
go. Yeah. I guess the idea is to just get your word out.
Yep. Yeah.
Um,
And try and pose it or present it in a fashion that's not blatantly offensive would be a
yeah,
tactic as well.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, I guess so. I think people are gonna get offended either way. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Some are more soft skinned than others for sure.
yeah, people are gonna get offended either way. I think to me, it's like be true to what you have to say.
Yes, exactly.
Um, and I guess be open to having your ideas changed in any like exact. Oh, great! It was all your hair.
Yeah, I know. It's on the back. It's got something too, but I'm not going to
Yeah,
turn around right now.
yeah. I guess that's what I guess me coming out of religion and my deconversion was being open that my ideas will be changed. And
Mhm.
even now, I'm always like posed with questions where I'm like, well, I have to think about this. Um, but yeah, no, I guess just being open to people having criticism, responding them in the same way. So I feel like now when people talk about things that I have firm opinions and views on. And I'm like, if you have a better idea, or if you have a better argument, let me know. But for now, whatever you've presented me before, I stand firm on it.
Mhm. Exactly. Well, you know what? We've come on an hour already.
Yeah.
I know, like boof, just goes
I
by.
know. I was just like, talk, 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 all out there.
Well, that's why you're here, to share your story. And I
Thanks
just
for
want to
listening.
thank you so much for coming and joining me today. It was great.
I'm glad we finally got to do this.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Because we planned on it a while back, like way back in like April, I think.
Yeah.
But some
Um,
stuff came up and we had to bug it.
yeah. I think this was after, like, this happened, like, I think a lot of after Faithless Forum, and I guess a lot of the white atheists, and I say this because the ex-Muslim atheists are so different, and we basically know a lot of people from like
Yeah,
one way or the other. We just know each other.
yeah,
So the white atheists kind of are not as represented in the ex-Muslim world, and vice versa.
yeah, yeah.
I think I think that's getting less. I think that's narrowing down now.
I
Uh,
agree. I think so. Very much so.
but like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I don't think there was a lot of ex-Muslim representation in general.
I was just happy that they were able to pipe you in last year for Faithless Forum because I was there, right? So I saw
And
you.
yeah, it was a pain. Like everybody was talking, and I'm like, everything is so delayed.
I know, I know.
I was
And
actually
people
going to be
understood
there.
that.
I was actually going to be there this year in person. Um,
It's been delayed for a year.
yeah,
I
I
know.
guess we'll just have to wait for a year.
Yeah, I bought a whole crap load of stickers to give out to everybody,
Oh
oh,
no.
which reminds me, I got to mail a bunch out to my patrons.
Ooh,
And
do
guys,
that.
also, if you like what you heard from Zara today, her Patreon is down below as well. You can help support her for I think it's the Faithless Hijabi Patreon, I believe,
It's
or
Zara
it's
K.
for you, Zara K, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. IQ's been popping all your stuff in there
Oh,
already.
thank you.
My moderator extraordinaire. Well, are
I
you
love-
still up for going for a little bit after? Like, we'll take a quick break
Yeah,
and come
yeah,
back
I'm
and
good.
then go.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that works.
All right. So that's what we'll do, guys. We're going to jump to an after party. If you're interested in jumping in and saying hello to Zara, please let me know through the Facebook, or not Facebook, Twitter, or Facebook if you're not on Twitter, or Twitter DMs, and I'll send you a link. But remember, we'll have to swap people in and out because I have a feeling there's going to be quite a few people that want to come in and say hi. You're quite a
Okay.
popular person.
Oh,
So.
thanks.
I'm getting there.
I'm so excited to meet everyone. Like honestly,
Yeah,
like
for sure.
I'm just really enjoying getting to know people and everybody's stories and just like
Yeah.
creating the community. I'm like David Worley made it to my birthday last year, and I was like, oh my god, you
Oh,
made it!
that's awesome.
And he got me a present that I've yet to wear. But like I was just
Oh,
like, you got me a present, and I'm like, all I wanted was for you to be here. And I'm like,
I
oh
hope it
my god.
was tasteful. I know that whirly guy, so I hope it was tasteful.
He like before I opened the present, I knew what it was.
Oh, did you? Okay.
I
Okay.
knew
Okay.
what it was, and I'm like, if there's something he would give me, it would be this, and he did. I'm
Oh,
not gonna
really?
say it yet. I'm not gonna say it yet because I really want
You'll
to
have
wear
to
it.
surprise it. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah,
All right.
perfect.
Well, yeah, that was great. Great having you on. Great chatting with you. Finally get
Yeah,
to talk to you face to face,
exactly.
virtually, anyways. And next year in Texas, it'll be face to face in person.
I want to go to a shooting range.
Right? I saw Steven and Rachel doing that shit last year.
I was like, this. I've never done this, and I'm like, I've never held a gun, and I'm like, I just really
I
want to
have.
go, and like, I was, yeah. I was just like, I want to go
Shooting
to a
ranges are
shooting
fun.
range. Yeah.
They're fun. But
But
one thing I'll tell you right now, expect when you go to shoot a gun, expect kick.
what do you
Because
mean?
they kick back when you fire them, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
the
I'm
first time I
gonna
ever shot a handgun, I punched myself in the face because I was not
yeah.
expecting that.
Yeah, I'm gonna start working out and build up my upper body. I can do 8 push-ups. I can do 8 push-ups
Oh,
in a row. So I'm like, Yes.
8 in a row. Shit, I can't even do 3 anymore. Fuck.
I couldn't do more than 2 weeks ago. So I think I just increased 1 every day or something.
This is my exercise. What is it? The 32-ounce lift.
I just indulge myself with a lot of chocolate cake.
Ooh,
So.
I'm with you on that one. I'm a chocoholic, so.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's wrap this up and get in there. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was gonna say, I just made like 2 chocolate cakes, 1 day before and 1 yesterday. So I've just.
Why am I here and not over there helping you eat that chocolate cake?
I ate it by myself.
Bravo!
I didn't even share.
Whole new level of respect right there.
I got my boyfriend like a small piece, and I'm like, "Are you gonna eat this today?" And he's like, "No, not later." And I'm like, "I'm finishing it. This is all mine. Bye."
So is that why you had to make another one? Just kind of make it up for him? So
no, that was also for me.
I like the way you think, Zara. All right. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation as much as we did, as you can tell, because we're laughing and giggling and stuff. And I'm just once again, thank you, Zara. And until next time, guys, remember, be well, be safe, and be kind. And like the late, great Christopher Hitchens once said, it's called faith because it's not knowledge. And we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.